Hey, folks! Happy holidays and Merry Christmas and all that. It's This Week in History with Mike and Will.
I'm Will.
I'm
That's
Mike.
Mike.
This week we discuss an event that happened in history on this week. Actually, Will talks about it to me, and I just ask questions. Mm-hmm. And this week we're talking about Christmas, because it's Christmas time.
It's Christmas time.
So we're talking about the first documented Christmas, which happened in 336 A.D.
On Christmas.
On
December 25th.
Christmas, December 25th. So we're going to discuss that.
Yeah.
Will only has 1 hour to do that. Ready, Will?
Ready. Always ready. Quick caveat: we didn't do last week. I need to work the time down. It's ticking down. Last week we were gonna do Francis Drake, but I was sick, and then you got sick.
Yes.
But we didn't get each other sick.
No.
So that was good. Right. But you still got sick, so it's like we could have done it anyway.
I guess we could have. Yeah. Oh well.
So we're both shaking the tail ends of a cold. Don't worry, it's not COVID. We're fine.
And we're not going to get you infected.
You guys, I don't think the Omicron. It's a virus, though.
A digital
A
virus.
digital virus.
Terrible.
It's digitized itself. Dear God.
That'll be the next step.
That's the next one. That's the so we're at Omicron. The next one is Optimus Prime. Then comes Megatron. Then comes Nvidia.
Well, we'll leave this to the future this week in history, people who are looking back at now.
And
saying this week in history,
like they had jokes, but
Mike and Will ended the world.
their sickness mutated.
Whoops.
And digitized. Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about Christmas.
Christmas!
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
So many songs.
But was it always? And no, because before, Jesus was born, nobody cared about that day. It wasn't. But did they?
I don't know.
So that's what we're going to talk about.
I think I have some ideas.
We have some ideas. So, the date of Christmas is, for those of you who don't know, is the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, who is the founder, the creator of the Christian faith. He is, according to Christianity, the Son of God, and was born in a manger to a virgin named Mary, and he had a very awesome stepdad who just said, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
This is all fine. I accept this. I love you, and I will raise him as my child. And then the Bible never really talks about him again, even though he was awesome, obviously.
I hope he was getting alimony or something.
I think
What's
whatever. From
child,
God.
Child support.
Child support from God.
Child support.
Good health.
Yeah. Like
Success.
Crops.
And he was a carpenter, so I mean, like...
Well, that'd be great.
And then funny enough, Jesus died on a cross. Wonder who made it. Hopefully it wasn't Daddy.
I don't know. We don't know him.
Don't know.
Make a note. Find
Don't
out what
know.
happened.
Find out.
What happened to Joseph?
What happened to Joseph? Because then there's Joseph of Arimathea, who's a different guy. And that was the guy that gave his tomb to Jesus, which I'd rather have a different gift.
I actually have a couple of questions before we even start.
Okay.
Like the name Joseph, that seemed like a common name. There's like
Yep.
at least three that pop up in my head in the Bible.
Yep.
The name Mary, twice. Like there were two
They,
women.
they knew each other. Yeah.
And they're both named Mary. Both seem very white people names.
Yeah.
All right.
They do. They do seem white people names. It's largely because the Europeans took some of those names.
Yes.
And said, well, these are very important people, and we're going to take those names. But then also part of it is translation differences.
Yes.
So originally the Bible is written in Aramaic, is the local language, the writing style, like a Sanskrit type. Mm-hmm. And then it was translated eventually into Greek.
Yep.
And then it was translated from Greek into Latin. And you learn... My girlfriend is currently learning Greek.
Oh.
It is super complicated.
I bet.
Super complicated.
Sounds like a thing
and a
people
lot
will
of the
learn.
times there's not a direct translation. And then when you
okay.
have 2,000-year-old Greek and you have 5 people trying to do all this writing, some stuff changes.
So I guess
definitions,
my
some word
base question though was there someone named Joseph, or was his name like
Yosefano. Kind of?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
All right.
That's
Well, let's leave that in question.
down.
If anyone knows, put it in the
because
comments.
I was more less concerned about Joseph, more concerned about Jesus.
Sure.
So the birth date of Jesus is not known by anybody at all.
Right.
Anyone who says they know for sure is a liar because it's not recorded.
Why would it be?
Why would it be? He was just some lady's kid who was born supposedly in a manger in the back of a tavern.
I mean,
nobody wrote that down. On this day was an auspicious occasion. Blah, blah, blah.
Most likely, all this was retroactively
This was all written about
cobbled
way
together at least, invented more likely.
Yes. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about with the stories of this, because Christmas is not just a solely Christian thing.
Sure.
That we're going to talk about some of the parallels from older faiths that are exactly the same. We're going to talk about Yule time, which is something we also celebrate concurrently. We're going to talk about why we celebrate it on December 25th.
Can I give a guess as to why we celebrate Christmas when we do?
Why?
My guess is that it's a festive holiday thing, and then we put it in the middle of winter right when we're all dying to say, oh, aren't we happy we're still alive? Yep, check in with you when we start planting crops.
I'm sure that's part of it.
Okay.
The main reason was it's the winter solstice celebration in the original calendar, and everybody celebrated that.
Winter solstice now takes place a couple days before.
Yep.
I like that. That's my favorite day. It's the shortest day of the year.
It's the shortest day of the year.
It's my favorite day in that it's the shortest day, and then from then on days get longer. That's why I like it. I'm not a fan of darkness.
So for where we live in Wisconsin, which is basically Mars. It gets to be negative 40 sometimes in the winter. Our days are like 4 hours long. It seems like sometimes, and it just. I know it's worse in like other places.
Sure.
Alaska,
we
where
are
they're
not
like
talking about you. We're talking about us.
About our lives.
The thing I like about Wisconsin, though, is as kind of miserable as winters can be, it does make you appreciate then the spring and fall. Note you
didn't say the summer, because the summer's miserable too, because it's 1,000 degrees and it's humid.
And
it's like may as well be in Florida.
Yep.
That's why it's like everybody's, oh well, let's go to Florida. That's Wisconsin in the summer. Why would I? Nope. That's when I just turn on my AC.
All right, let's stay on track.
So we're staying on track because we're going to talk about we got to figure out like why is there pine trees and all this other stuff.
Germans.
That's exactly right. So we're going to start with the date. The date is 25th, and it is an important day because that is when the winter solstice was celebrated at the time, and the Romans codified that as the day to celebrate Christianity, or the birth of Christ. Now, here's what's interesting. Codified? I always think it's codified because it's codified.
I think you might be right, but I say it the other way.
You can say it's codified. Co-codified.
Established.
Co-codified.
Wrote it down.
They made a decision.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this guy before. We've never really gone into detail about it. Someday we will. But there was a Roman emperor named Constantine.
Oh.
And he's a very important guy because he made it okay to be Christian. So a lot of this, people talk about like Christians were oppressed and they were thrown to the lions and stuff like that. That did happen.
Yeah, that's why they talk about it.
It wasn't
still
like,
bitter about it.
It wasn't all the time. So
I would talk about it a lot.
Exactly. Though. Like it's funny because like the Christians are like, oh well, we were oppressed, and I just imagine the Jews are just sitting in the back going, yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Yep. You're super. How many got thrown to the lions? 5?
I don't know, man. Being thrown to the lions seems like real.
And then the Jews are like, you know who else was thrown to the lions? The Jews. You know who else was being slaughtered by the Romans nonstop the whole time?
Yeah, but we
Jews.
We didn't like it, though.
Exactly. It's like, but our oppression is different because it's worse. It's like, is it? Because the Christian oppression didn't actually last nearly as long as the Jewish oppression at the same time.
Because they complained about it.
Because they were better at complaining. You'd think the Jews would have tried that. Maybe lodge a formal complaint.
That can't be how history works.
I don't think that's how.
Why were you oppressed for so long? Well, they didn't complain. We thought they liked it.
They thought they enjoyed the constant.
They seemed to enjoy their place in life.
The Romans are like, we oppress everybody, which is fair because they do. They even oppress other Romans. So
yeah, we're not.
So it's not like they singled them out.
Yeah.
They just hated everybody.
We're not racist or anything. We oppress all.
They oppress every single person who gives a reason. Well, a big part of it was Christians were considered a destabilizing factor. They had this revolutionary new leader who was promoting things like don't listen to authority figures.
Hippie stuff.
And that bothered the Romans. But also, what's interesting too is he was more against the Pharisees, who were the high priests, and less against the Romans, which is also kind of interesting because the Jews at the time were like, yeah, but the Romans suck, and they've been oppressing us. And he's like, yeah, but you're under Caesar that, which is Caesar. And all the Jews were like, which is nothing. Like, this is our stuff. We can't keep taking it. And he's like, is it worth fighting? And it was, because, or at least some people thought it was.
Huh.
So they were considered, though, kind of this radical new group, though, that was going to create potentially some social change. They had problems with slavery. The Romans did not. They were like, but that's how we build stuff, and that's our war. Like, if we have war, we have slaves. That's the thing. And I probably should look up exactly when the Romans stopped having slaves, because
I bet it's a Tuesday.
it was a Tuesday, probably at some point on a Tuesday.
But I bet it probably also wasn't one day. It
probably is
slowly.
Yeah.
Some poor guy. Oh, I just heard. What it happened 3 years ago. Oh, I should explain that to my slaves.
Time does not news does not travel quickly in the Roman Empire. Nobody told me. We sent a rider. He must have died.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
you mean that guy? He's a slave now.
He's a slave now. He brought me some bad news, and I didn't appreciate it. And yes, we can blame the messenger in ancient Rome.
So write down an idea for a movie, The Last Slave
The
in
Last
Rome.
Slave in Rome. Who was the last guy to find out? How pissed was he? So, at the time, though, is Constantine, who is in charge of a chunk of Rome, but at the time, Rome had what was called the Tetrarchy.
Yes.
4 emperors running the country. His dad was an emperor, but he was a soldier, and then he became an emperor. And then Constantine inherited the throne. And Constantine found himself having to kind of get all of Rome to work together again. And he beat the crud out of the other members of the Tetrarchy and became the sole emperor of Rome for the first time in several years. One of the things he did was there was this battle where he said he saw the sign of the Christian God, which is that P over an X.
Yeah.
And that's why we start seeing it on Roman shields and banners and things like that. Is he saw it in the sky, and it was an omen that his soldiers would have victory. And he talked about it in this speech before this battle. The soldiers went on. They were to win the battle. They were inspired. So it's kind of surmised that maybe Constantine decided Christianity's a good idea because it's the new hip thing. It's become very popular.
Yeah.
And I can use it to unify my people. So then he goes on to have this...
You think he made that up then?
Probably.
Dang.
Probably. He probably...
I saw a cloud formation.
Yeah, because
anyone else see that?
Yeah, nobody else saw it, and that's really he was the one who talked about it.
Believe me.
Because what happens then is they have what's called the Council of Nicaea, or it might be Nicaea or Nicaea, depends on if you're Greek. I'm not Greek, but this was from May to August in 325 AD. And basically, what Constantine said is, so I like this whole Christianity thing, and I'm interested in it, but there's no fixed rules. You have 1,800 bishops, all of whom are kind of doing their own thing. There's no single book.
I like this idea, but come on,
let's
tighten up the.
We don't have any rules. We don't have what are the holidays like? What I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
you need to fix this.
Who's he talking to?
So he sets up this conclave.
So he just
says this. He kind of has this idea,
fixed.
And he says this needs to be fixed. Right. So he sends out messengers to every single Christian bishop. And they spread the information to priests. And he's planning on having this massive get-together of thousands of people. And I think the total was somewhere between 250 and like 320 showed up. Okay. So not nearly as many as he wanted. But they also brought an entourage.
I'm sorry, this is called the Council of Nicaea?
Council of Nicaea. Nicaea. That was in...
Nicaea.
Nicaea. And that was a city in the... excuse me, the Eastern Roman Empire, which is, I think, modern-day Turkey, or it might be in Greece.
I've heard the term Council of Nicaea.
Well, there were like 6.
Oh, well, I've heard the term.
And then this created what was called the Nicene Creed. So if you've ever been to Catholic Mass...
Yes, I've heard that as well.
They say that we believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty. That whole thing comes from this. Huh. And it was a chance for them to sit down and say, what do we actually believe?
Yep.
And what goes in the Bible. Now, here's where it's interesting, is this was not decided by the priests. This was decided by the temporal leader of a massive empire with a huge army and a lot to gain from having a codified religion that he was kind of in charge of.
He had no ulterior motives except to spread joy in the Christian religion.
Exactly. Because, yeah, it's not like he had a legion of soldiers standing around and said, you guys are going to come up with how this book is going to go, and it's probably going to go good for me.
Sorry, I've just noticed that the shape of my head is similar to the shape of that tree back there.
It's throwing you off.
That's fine.
You're fine.
Ignore it at home. Maybe I'll edit this out.
Don't edit it out. It's beautiful. It's art. It's art. You have to look.
Sure.
You have to look. So, anyway,
Yes.
he basically said at Sword Point, this is what's going in the Bible.
Oh.
Now, because he oversaw the thing.
Who called it the Bible?
Don't know.
Good.
I think that was the term that they ended up using
I
as
bet.
they threw the. I think Bible just means like the book. I don't remember.
Bible must
exactly
be because bibliothèque. The Latin book. Yeah, but I mean just the book.
I feel like I should have anticipated you to ask
That's
me about
fine.
the
I'll
definition
look
of
it up
all
myself.
the words this time. Unfortunately, we don't do this live anymore, so we don't have a. Well, actually,
Yeah, no one watches.
nobody watches. It's me, you, and Matt.
All right, we'll correct ourselves later.
We'll correct ourselves later. We're gonna find this out.
Sure. Remember.
Will, I'm telling you, look this up when we're done. So what they wound up doing is they had this Council of Nicaea, and they said, here are our days that matter. The main feast days.
Yep.
Most importantly, Easter.
Easter was
That's
the big
the
one.
big one.
Yeah.
That's the Jesus is crucified, he dies, and then he comes back 3 days later. He's like, everything's fine.
I imagine when they're pitching what's important about the religion, like, oh, the one time that he died and came back, that's a big deal.
That's a big one.
Let's make that important. Write that down. That's a
Yeah,
big one.
doing
So,
it.
but the day he did the loaves and fishes, it's nice, but that's not big.
That's cool, but da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I can do that.
Think that's how it works?
Turn around. Loaves and fishes.
See, I imagine you have a bunch of kids.
Because he's just standing on top of the hill, but behind him, you don't see what's going on. There's a mountain of loaves and fishes, baby. He's like, Peter,
whole bunch of
Peter,
caterers back there
loaf,
with their little
Simon, fishes.
little hot terrains with a sternum under it. We're cooking the fish.
Thomas, bring me more loaves and fishes. And Thomas is just sitting there the whole time going, I don't think this will work. It's a dumb idea. Because he's doubting Thomas.
Yeah. Know your Bible stories.
Know your Bible stories. Otherwise,
Or
you
not.
can't make good jokes.
I'm not going to make you know your Bible
No, you
stories.
don't have to. This is a secular nation.
All right,
Don't
keep
have
talking.
to. So, Constantine establishes
Yes.
the Nicene Creed
Easter.
and has this. Now, Easter's principal day. What is not a principal date is the birthday.
Oh,
That is considered a...
I'm sorry. Let me back up to Easter. Was that were they able to align that up, or was it lined up with a different thing? Was that like, oh yeah, he
So-
actually did die here around Easter time?
They have a rough
Because they switched the date every year.
estimation. So Jesus Christ is mentioned, not Jesus Christ, but the name Christus is mentioned in Roman histories. Suetonius mentions him, and several other people mention him, but specifically two major Roman historians, for sure Suetonius. I can't remember who the other one is.
Okay.
I think it might be Tacitus, but I'm not positive. He is mentioned as the leader of the Christians, and that's it. He's kind of a footnote. And he's established as, oh yes, Christus did this thing, and then he died in the... They largely base it on the year of Caesar Augustus's reign. So it's like his 30th year of his reign is when Jesus was...
Okay.
So they mention it, but they don't give... There's not always a specific date.
Okay.
But they do say, okay, yeah, so this guy was a thing out east in our province in Jerusalem, and he's a bit of a rabble-rouser, and we didn't appreciate it, so we whacked him.
Yeah.
Because the locals wanted it done, was part of their thing.
Sure. Well, we can discuss all that, I'm sure, in This Week in History in the spring.
Yes.
Right now we're talking Christmas.
That's a big deal. So Christmas. So Easter, though, that's the big one.
Yeah.
And birthdays are not really celebrated. It's considered a very pagan thing, is to celebrate birth.
Oh.
It's the circle of life. There's fertility holidays that are linked to it. So that the idea of when you're born isn't super important.
You
It's one of the
didn't,
events-
you didn't do much
You
on that
didn't
day.
do anything. You just
Should be.
you
That should
showed up.
really. That should be Mother's Day, frankly.
Really, it should be. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
She did the
Mother's
work.
Day should be. Your birthday should be Mother's. Everyone should have an individual Mother's Day. Yeah, that's.
give presents to mom.
Yeah.
Why do I give you presents? You got born. That was an inconvenience.
Yeah. Now I got. You're born now. I gotta get every year.
Yep, I gotta give you presents forever. I have to feed you. I have to clothe you. I have to be responsible for you. This is crap.
Your
And you're gonna
birthday-
give me a stupid card on Mother's Day.
Your birthday should be Mother's Day.
Your birthday should be Mother's Day.
Right.
So,
Okay.
during these discussions, though, they decide, okay, we have these massive festivals already for these different holidays. Let's see if we can line them up.
Okay, sure.
So the
Trying to
winter
organize
solstice. So the
things
winter
anyway,
solstice is the big one.
Yep.
That happens around Jesus' birthday. So they mix together. They also kind of mix in like the Saturnalia, which was a fairly debauched
I've heard of that
celebration.
Yeah.
Where it was just kind of drinking and having lots of sex and just going wild. It was a great
Oh,
time.
Rome.
It was a great time. So the Christian celebration of Jesus' birth is kind of a debauched holiday at the time. It's everybody just gets drunk and celebrates however they feel like. There's not really, they don't have trees, they don't have any of this stuff. It's just kind of whatever. So it's the first time that it's celebrated is 11 years after the Council of Nicaea. But what's going on at the same time is there's a bit of an argument at the council. And there was what was called the Arian controversy. Not Aryan like Nazis. Different spelling.
I didn't. Okay.
There's Aryan. Those Aryans, those Nazis. This is the white, blonde hair, blue eye Aryans.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's always tied to them. The original Aryans were just like a barbarian group.
Barbarian.
Non-Latin speaking group.
Barbarian.
Barbarian. Barbarian. Or Barbarian.
All right, I'll look up and spell it later.
They were very pokey.
Sure.
Barbarians.
Oh. I'll take care of the jokes.
You do the jokes. I'll just. So anyway, so there was this Aryan
I'm kidding.
controversy.
That was a good one. I should have supported you.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sorry.
should. You just
Merry
bailed.
Christmas,
You
Will.
bailed. Thanks, man. Thanks. And it's called this because there was a priest named Arius, and he was he was a senior priest. It was called a Presbyterian.
Okay.
Comes from this, and it just means he's a senior priest. He's educated. He's well respected. He's not as powerful as like a bishop. Or any of those higher ranks, but he's a respected priest. And he says, Jesus was born, ergo he didn't exist before he was born, ergo he cannot be equal to God, because he's his son. So he's not a co-equal dude.
Yeah.
He's his kid.
Yeah.
He's also comes out of a woman, ergo not fully divine.
Yeah.
Which, to everybody who's more logically inclined, they go, yeah, that makes sense.
Sure. You're using the word ergo.
Ergo,
We're
you
with
say
you.
ergo a lot. Well,
Yeah,
he's
sounds
Latin.
right.
He's speaking in Latin.
Sure.
Ergo is a big word in there. Ergo
Sure.
sum, yeah. Stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, I can follow this line of logic.
Yeah.
This does not sit well with a lot of people, though. And
Yeah.
it causes this huge there's actually a fight.
Oh.
These old guys just start beating the crap out of each other and fighting, which is why the emperor was there with his legion, because he's like, soldiers, if they keep doing it, just start stabbing them.
But a bunch of old guys fighting each other, it does sound like Christmas.
That does sound like Christmas. It's just a lot of drunk uncles.
Yep.
Just, yeah, me tell you, and it's drunk and talking about religion.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go great.
It sounds like the Christmas I've
Sounds like
witnessed.
almost, half of my Christmases are,
Yeah.
I like that. Anyway, this causes a kind of a rift. Not quite enough to be a full schism in the church,
Sure.
where it's like, we're separate now, and we're killing each other.
That's a big thing in Catholic is the Trinity. Where
It's the Holy Trinity.
They are in there. They're equal.
They're all equal. There's
And then this guy's
God,
like, yeah, but-
Jesus,
Yeah.
Holy Spirit, co-equal, same thing,
Yeah.
different entities within the same God,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
And this guy's like, me.
And he's like, nah, because it's like, God, this is God. And then he's got a son, and his son is obviously not him, because he talks to himself at one point. He's talking to his father, so
Yeah.
why would he do that if he was him?
Ergo.
Ergo, not the same guy, not equal. Because he could have just gone, boom,
Well, that's a
snap,
rough.
and changed
That's
it.
a rough stance to take.
And at the time,
Either one is rough.
it was not, it was frowned upon.
Yeah.
So for 50 years, there's this rift kind of within this church that's newly formed, that just got the blessing of the emperor to go, yeah, you can go be a church.
Yeah. But we need some ground rules.
But we
about
have
it.
to have some ground rules. And
yeah.
all the Arian followers just go, nope, we're out. And they leave.
Oh.
They don't, because this council only lasts from May to August.
Yep.
That's not 50 years. So for 50 years after this, though, they aren't able to resolve this issue. Because it comes up fairly early on. Arius basically has been talking about this for a while. He walks, he says, but yeah.
But that's got to be a tough issue to resolve with not a lot of documentation or science.
300 years after his death.
Like both sides are theorizing,
and they're just theorizing, and it's also a matter of faith.
Yeah,
which is not something that should ever be concrete.
It's hard.
That's the whole point of faith.
Yeah,
it's not solid. It's not grounded, and they don't have. And they literally have the source of all records if they wanted them. Any Roman record of importance that matters about anything, they just say, "Hey, Emperor, you have all of the information. Can we have some?" And he's happy to give it to them.
Sure.
And it's really just the priests are yelling at each other over what they think. Christmas. So what comes from this is they create the Nicene belief that it's a Trinity, and the Arian guys are dumb and stupid, and we're not listening to them.
Did they include that in there?
It's at the end.
And furthermore,
Arius is a dummy dummerton, and we don't like him. Meh. Well, unfortunately, though, his beliefs spread.
Sure.
There is an Arian king.
Yeah.
Like, he has a belief that the Arian philosophy is accurate, and he oppresses any Christian who doesn't agree with him.
Well, that's the way it goes.
That's
right.
how it works. So this is still the same church, and
you can't have your
schism,
own. You can't have your own belief if
of
other people
this-
don't believe it.
Exactly.
You got to make sure they all believe
They
it.
all have to believe what you believe. The Emperor, meanwhile, is like, okay, it's a done deal. I'm done. I'm out of here. You guys wrote what I wanted you to include in my happy little book. He signs off on it, and they have this kind of a formal thing. So then,
have fun with your religion.
a decade later is the first official celebration, or at least documented celebration of Christmas.
Yay!
And it goes well. Like, it's not really remarked upon, which means, like, there were no fires, and there wasn't a slaughter, and things didn't go badly. There were no human sacrifices. There was nothing crazy.
Hey, baby steps.
But it was a festival. So they were happy that Jesus was born. Yay. And then for about 500 years, they don't really talk about Christmas.
Oh.
It's not really a big deal.
Don't take off.
The birth of anybody, even if it's the founder of your faith, isn't as important as what he did.
I'm assuming in the first 500 years they didn't really have any. It was just a festival. We're drinking
It's a
stuff,
festival.
but
It wasn't
wouldn't
like
be
they didn't.
specific. We're drinking now this time of night. We're saying these words.
There may have been local rituals.
Some little things. Yeah.
There were probably local rituals. There was a mass,
Uh-huh.
but there were masses every day for
Yeah.
something. But they would have a mass. They would have a celebration. They would say, "Hey, we're kicking it off," and it was generally just considered observe that this is the birth of the Savior and try to be decent. But there weren't like gift giving wasn't a thing at the time.
All the trappings.
All of the trappings of Christmas have not yet come to be.
Okay.
So at the time, it's the equivalent of any other Roman celebration at the time, because that was the point of it, was to unite all of the beliefs to celebrate one thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we're going to find out a little more about who else does this later on in history to help kill off other religions. Because this is a prototype. This is
Probably
a prototype.
They probably didn't frame it that way. This is
No.
to kill off. It's more to codify our religion.
It was specifically
we have to do
to
that.
end paganism
Sure.
in Denmark.
But he probably didn't say that. They probably said it to like. Well,
He didn't say kill it.
Right.
He said it's
Say-
to spread the word of God.
Yeah, we want our religion to be
That
the right
was more of it.
religion.
It was a let's spread the word of God.
We're not destroying yours.
We're not destroying yours.
We're just imposing ours.
And we'll talk about in a little bit, but the guy who does this is a genius.
Ooh.
It's a genius move. It's a genius move. I don't appreciate it, but it's a genius move.
Well, you don't have to be
Genius move.
a good guy to be a
Don't
genius.
exactly. You could. I mean, most villains always they're super geniuses.
Evil geniuses.
Evil geniuses. You don't really talk about the evil idiot.
Right.
That guy doesn't do very well. He, yeah,
I'm evil.
but I'm
Can't find the doorknob.
There's a use for that guy.
Sure.
He's usually just more infuriating than anything. Nobody likes him, and he just messes things up. So, during this time, the Roman Empire grows again, and then collapses in 476 AD, which we talked about.
Yep.
Then there's the Eastern Roman Empire, former Roman Empire, and that forms into different cultures and different countries. But at this time, Christianity's still a thing, and it's still celebrated, and it's expanded, and it's been solidified. One of the kings, like I said, who was he believed what Arius taught. I think he was a Goth. So he wasn't even Roman, but he was a Christian. So there's like this belief that like the barbarians up until the fall of Rome were like loincloths and a battle axe, and, pointy hats with feathers and stuff.
Yeah.
And they weren't. They were the proto-medieval people.
Just people.
They're just people.
But they're not doing what
they
we
just
want.
don't
So they're
live
barbarians.
in Rome.
Yeah.
And barbarian just meant people who don't speak Latin.
Right.
Non-Romans. Which is the majority of the world. It doesn't mean that they're living in mud huts and...
Yeah.
There are people living in mud huts. But
Yeah,
there
but
were
I'm sure
Romans living in mud huts.
For every society, there's also the guy with the nicest mud hut.
Exactly. Or a stone house just up the road.
Right.
It's kind of like, West Virginia. It's mostly mud huts, but then there's a mansion.
All right.
Okay, so it's not mud huts, it's trailers. And then...
We love you, West Virginia.
Do we, though?
I do. I know people from West Virginia.
Hi, West Virginia. There's that song. Country road, take me home
To your mud
place.
hut. Or your stone.
Sorry, West Virginia. I shouldn't make fun of West Virginia, but I'm gonna.
Okay.
Anyway, but no. So Christianity is surviving. It's thriving. It's expanding. And as one religion grows, other religion dies off. Typically. Now, at the same time as this is going on, and there's all these other religions, there is the Norse/Germanic paganism and their practice of Yule.
Yule.
Now, Yule is a fascinating holiday because what Yule is it's a celebration of the solstice, and Yule is actually another name for Odin, who is the great bearded god with one eye and the ravens and the spear and the big hat. And played by Anthony Hopkins and a million other people.
Sure.
And he was considered like the bringer of change.
Yeah.
And he was a god of war and god of death. And life cannot happen without death.
Sure.
That's a big part of especially Norse tradition. So Yule is this celebration of, it's the end of the seasons. It's the death of the seasons. And then there's going to be a growth.
Yes.
That comes after this. So it's like you said, you're like, so it sucks now and it's winter now, but now it's going to turn into something
But if we
nice.
all get together, maybe it'll get better.
And that was exactly how the Vikings saw everything.
Sure.
So the Vikings have this belief of Ragnarok,
Yes.
which is the end of all things. They started to incorporate that into a yearly cyclical thing,
Oh.
where it was, at the end of the year, the gods die, the coming of Fenris, the wolf,
big
to
wolf
destroy everything, and then there will be a last battle, and there will be two gods who remain, and they bring about
the whole
light
thing,
and life,
There we go.
and recreate.
If
the
you
world.
haven't read, Neil Gaiman has a
American
wonderful. No, he's American Gods. He also has a Norse mythology. A bunch of short stories of that.
Oh, that sounds
It's
fascinating.
very good, including Ragnarok.
I'm gonna have to check that out because Neil Gaiman is an amazing writer.
He's a very good writer, and it's very good. He just took the old Norse stories and
He just wrote it his way
modernized it a bit to the language.
because the language is pretty tricky.
Yes.
And most Norse religion and beliefs was passed down orally for generation after generation after generation.
No paper.
So you had to get really good at telling the story, but also you had to perfectly recreate it. And the Skalds were the bards, the speakers. They were the keepers of the knowledge, but they're also warriors because they're Vikings.
Sure.
So you can't survive in this time and not know how to swing an axe into another person's face because everybody else wants to do that to you and take your stuff. Because there's 5 of you and not a lot of land, and you're just gonna have to deal with that.
Okay.
It's a very tough lifestyle in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
These are very tough.
Then they learned how to
Party
build a second floor on a building, and everyone was fine.
Everything's fine.
You just live upstairs.
You go upstairs. If you have a problem, you go up there.
That's right.
I leave all my stuff.
That's not really how it worked, but
Kick
maybe
in the
I
door,
like
you
to-
come in, you're like, nobody's here. Because they don't think to look upstairs.
Sure.
No problem. And you can't set it on fire because it's too damn cold.
I'm thinking the invention of stairs should have saved us all. But
Well, the trick is you don't have stairs, you have a ladder. So you
Ah.
take the ladder up after you.
sure.
Stairs, they can go up. The bad guys come in, they right upstairs. It's a problem. So anyway, they have the celebration of Yule. And the celebration of Yule has a lot of things like gift giving. There's a Yule feast. They have the Yule boar, which is still celebrated today. We have ham.
What?
Ham.
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 That's a Yule boar.
Yule
ham.
boar turned into ham. It started that way. They have this idea of gifts under a tree.
So
as
they
offerings
had,
to the gods.
They had put together a real fun festival.
They had a really fun festival. The
And then
Yule,
the Christians were like,
the Yule celebration was wild. It
Yeah.
was feasting.
sounds great.
There was a formal thing. They also did a lot of sacrifices.
Ooh, not as
Depends. Not people,
Okay.
but although some.
some people.
So earlier on, as paganism, as time went on, they stopped killing people because they're like, this isn't working as well. Can we just kill animals?
I'm enjoying this festival and all, but why does someone have to die every year?
That was really what it boiled down to. It's like, couldn't we just use? That was our best warrior.
There had to
Yeah, we had to offer him up to the gods. Like, yeah, but has that really ever paid dividends? Like,
So there was
wouldn't he just be better off
year,
in battle?
the first year. All right, fine, we're not killing anyone, but
If it
if
ends
it's wrong, next
badly,
year we're going back to it.
we're killing twice as many people next year.
So they had to luck out one year where they
Yep.
didn't kill anyone, and
They
then
didn't kill
the
anybody,
year
and
went
they hoped-
fine.
and it went fine.
See?
The world
It's
didn't
fine.
end. They're like, see,
All right.
sun rose and set, and nobody died. And
All
well,
right, fine.
no more people died than usual.
One guy, that was his favorite part of the year. It's my favorite.
One thing I get to do is I get to hold the big knife and kill the guy.
This is This is the war against Yule.
Yep.
I should be able to
It's the
kill a
war against
person.
evil. I should kill a guy every year. It's like, you know what? Just go out in a battlefield. No. They can kill me back.
It's not the same.
I don't like it. I want the ritual. How about if
my
you get to kill a
favorite time of
pig?
year.
It's not the same. It's close.
All right, I'm gonna bring a tree.
Fine.
I'm gonna bring a tree inside.
Yep. Can we put a wig on the pig at least?
Yeah, I guess.
Make it seem like a person. Fine.
I have to look up when wigs were invented.
Romans wore wigs. They had elaborate hairstyle wigs.
Sure.
Probably because it was just a pain in the butt to dress your hair up like that.
Oh yeah,
Have cool stuff. Just put it on like a hat. That was for rich people though.
make a note about wigs.
Wigs. Oh, I like his hair.
Oh god. I guess
I know.
that probably was how it happened.
You gotta take the scalp off first, dude. That's
surely,
gross.
That surely someone was like, you know what? I bet there's an easier way.
Mm-hmm.
We could fake it.
You can fake it.
All right.
Maybe like a horse's tail.
Yeah.
Nope, it's not the same. It's not, and it's the same guy who was mad about the sacrifices.
That's right.
He's
Oh, this
"No,
wig.
this is a war.
looks like a
it's
horse
a war
tail."
on wigs. This is nonsense, and you're attacking my beliefs. Really, dude? Yes.
All right.
His name was Guy. 'Cause there's always that guy.
Guy.
That guy.
Ugh.
He's just the worst. Probably Kyle.
The
Such a
dramatic name of Kyle.
And then his female equivalent was Karen. Like, I'd like to speak to the high priest about this. This is nonsense. My offerings are not treated the same way, and I don't appreciate it. I'd like to talk to the manager. She had bangs
Oh.
and that weird haircut that
Yeah.
Karens have. Yep, that was the thing. The goddess Karen,
I'm sure there's always been variations of Karens.
bringer of frustration. So, the celebration of Yule, though, is largely it becomes less violent and more about getting together, celebrating the end of the year. You maybe dig into your food stores a little bit, then more than you normally would.
Yeah.
You're having a good time. There was always you drank ale. That was a big part of it. So the drunks can have problems, but usually especially with Norse feasts is you have the longhouse, which is the big house.
Big house.
Big table.
Big long.
Everybody sits at the tables and eats and parties and has a good time. And
Yeah.
even like the rich people aren't that far set apart. They might be on a slightly raised platform, but it's largely they're eating what you're eating.
Same
and
room.
they're largely the founder of the feast.
Oh.
They provide for their people. That was expected of a good leader is you provided the feast.
And the biggest thing about in general feasts or whatever is the community aspect.
Yes.
You're bringing
Yes.
people together. We're
So,
all here,
yep.
same roof.
And you share stories and you talk about how the year went, and then you'd have plans for the next year. And they would always have toasts. They'd have a toast to the gods. They'd have a toast to achievements of the year, and then they always had a toast to the chieftain or the king or the lord or whoever was running the feast because they're like, "Thanks, dude. This is nice of you."
Yeah, thanks.
And that was Yule.
Thanks for stopping the human sacrifices.
There's the Yule goat, which is still a thing. They still have a Yule goat.
Yule
It's
goat.
usually made of straw.
We'll put a picture of it right here, right now.
Yep. And I was going to bring my little Yule goat. And I'm sad I didn't bring him. And the Yule goat was symbolic of Thor's goats. Thor had 2 goats
He had 2 goats.
that pulled his chariots.
Yeah.
They must have been really big goats. Or I do like the idea of little tiny goats pulling Chris Hemsworth on a big chariot. They're just little. And they're very strong. And he's just like, ha!
There's a whole story in that Neil Gaiman book about his goats. I forget their names, Nasher and Gnarler, Gnarly, and
One of them is
Smasher.
I can only ever remember one of their Nordic names is Ingrisgoter, I think, Ingrisgoter or something like that, and it's like Tooth Gnasher.
Yeah.
Yep. The other one's much harder to say, so I don't even bother with it. But to this day, that is still celebrated. A friend of mine lives in Reykjavik, which is the capital of Iceland, and they construct a gigantic Yule goat. And originally they would burn the Yule goat as a celebratory thing. It was with new life and end of an old thing. They're not supposed to burn this one, but every year somebody tries to. And they burned it for years and years and years. They burned this poor goat. And now they have to have like a fence around it because people just can't be trusted to be decent. But I giggle because I'm like, well, technically they're being the proper pagan by burning the goat.
Yeah. I feel like there was in the one stories at some point they had to eat, and so they ate one of the goats, but then burned it properly, and then it was back the next day.
And they came back the next day.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a big part of it, is this celebration of... There's the very pragmatic approach to faith from the pagans in Northern Europe, where they're like, well, yeah, death is a part of life. That just happens anyway. For Odin is a particularly... interesting character because Odin sacrifices himself for knowledge and for the safety of mankind. He not only gives up his eye to get a gift of foresight, he has himself hanged from a tree.
Oh, yeah.
And 3 days later he comes back much more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
With colored eggs.
Yes. Well, the colored eggs thing is another thing, because that's actually linked to a fertility goddess, Yoster.
But that's Easter.
That's Easter. We'll talk about that later. So you...
That was my fault.
Jumped ahead. 6 whole months. Or whatever. 4 months.
I blame Odin.
Blame Odin. Because they're all connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Odin actually has a Christ story.
Yeah.
Where he dies for the sake of mankind, comes back 3 days later. And it predates the story of Jesus. Because Odin is BC times, is when he started.
Yeah.
Now, the most written down version of it is from like the 9th century, by, I forget his last name, but Snorri the Storyteller. Wrote down the Poetic Edda, or the Prose Edda. And that is like somebody finally took all of the stories and wrote them down.
Yeah.
But these had been going on for 1,000 years.
Sure.
The Egyptians have a Christ figure, Osiris, who's killed, dies, comes back, and through him you will reach eternal life.
One would guess then that there is something to the base story concept.
Yes. The base story concept of
being able to die and come back.
Death
and
leading to new life, rebirth. And it's a simple concept for them was the seasons.
Yeah.
That's how the pagans always explained it.
Sure.
Everything dies, but then through death comes new life.
Yeah.
All the time.
It had to have been a way to get through a winter. This is awful. This is awful.
Gonna get
the people
better.
who've been around are like, don't worry. This happened last year.
Happened last year. Happened last year.
Yeah.
Even the Inuits, who it's always ice, they found a way to get through it.
Sure.
They don't have like it turns to spring. It's like, it'll be slightly less cold.
It'll be less cold.
It'll be less cold. The polar bears will come back. They'll drive the fish. Then we can fish. We'll eat. It'll be fine.
Can we go somewhere warmer? We don't know anywhere warmer.
Yeah.
This
How
is
do you
what we
going to
know.
get from here to there?
What do you mean warmer?
Yeah.
This
What
is
is that?
warmer.
This is warmer. It was. They don't even have negatives. They just like, it was cold yesterday. It's less cold today. It'll be colder tomorrow.
When will it be warmer? We don't have a word for warmer.
Yeah,
what are you even talking about?
That's not an Inuit word.
What do you say?
Warm? What? Less cold. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah,
less
right.
cold. It's always cold. They don't even call that cold. They just call that normal. It's less normal.
Normal or less normal?
It'll be less normal. They're like it's green elsewhere. It's like the ocean when it's the algae and stuff. No. Like the ground. No, that's white all the time. It's ice. It's just cold water.
Oh, Inuits.
Tough people.
Yeah.
Don't know anything about their culture other than very tough people.
I think we've shown the extent of our
That was about it.
And
we managed to do it all without being racist and calling them Eskimo, I think, is a pejorative.
Up till now.
So we don't do that. Up till now.
Yep.
Don't call them that.
Go on.
Anyway, so Yule is celebrated in the North while Christmas is starting to be a thing. And then comes along this king, Hakon the First.
Hakon?
Hakon. Haakon. And he comes around in, I think, like 970. I got to double check.
Sorry.
I could double check because it might have been way later. But his idea is, well, I'm a Christian and I want all of my lands to be Christian.
Yes.
I'm tired of this.
Organized. Got it.
All this division, it's stupid. And they're the Vikings peoples, especially, they'd been killing Christians like for fun for forever. That was just a thing. Vikings killed the Christians killed the Vikings. They made fun of each other's gods, and it was this constant murder thing.
Fun.
He didn't like that, and he also thought, well, if I'm going to have a unified country, we're going to be civilized, we're not murder each other, and I'm a Christian, so we're going to do what I want to do, because I'm the king. So he comes in, and rather than coming in with fire and sword, like every other monarch seems to do, where they're like, you do what I do. No?
Yeah, you do what I do.
Well, your children will do what I do because you're dead.
Whoops.
Do you want to get dead? No.
Sounds like then let's have a fun Christmas.
Have a fun Christmas. So his idea is, he says, okay, so Yule's awesome. Everybody likes Yule.
Have you guys been to Yule?
But what we're going to...
So is this like 1 year I'm sorry to interrupt. It's 1 year he went to like Burning Man, came back, guys.
Well, he was raised in this culture, so he knew what Yule was.
Oh, okay.
But the problem was Yule takes place at a different time than Christmas. It's close, but it's not the same time. So he just said, we're going to shift it. Yule takes place during Christmas time.
Boom.
12 days of Christmas time, Yule time. That's the original 12 days of Christmas, Yule.
Here's a partridge.
And he just says, so you guys can have these celebrations, but you have to have them here to here, and as long as there's ale, we're celebrating.
Ooh.
He kind of makes it a mandatory fun.
I like the cut of this guy's jib.
And everybody else does, too. His people are like, this is awesome. He's the party king.
That's nice.
This guy knows what's up. He's letting us do Yule and do it right. And then he starts kind of just tweaking it a little bit by little bit, going, so this is a Christmas celebration. Because you guys aren't really like... You're not really worshiping Odin, right? And they're like, not really. We're just celebrating the thing. He's like,
we just
this
like the
is what
drinking
this
part.
is for. We're going to have the drinking and the partying and the celebrating of all the seasonal stuff.
Say his
We're going to have
name
it at this time. Hakon.
Haakon.
H-A-A-K-O-N.
The first.
It might be pronounced Hakon, but Hakon sounds cooler.
Sure.
He almost sounds like a Klingon.
So, but it sounds like he was the one most responsible for getting us to our modern... Christmas.
He was definitely a big push in this.
Yeah.
Because in the rest of Europe, Christmas is used as like an important day to do cool stuff.
Yeah.
So there was that 500-year gap, and the guy who actually made Christmas kind of popular again was Charlemagne. In 800, when he got crowned, one of his titles, he made sure it was on Christmas. Because he wanted it to be linked to an important religious holiday. He wanted to be, as Holy Roman Emperor, he thought, this should be linked to me becoming Holy Roman Emperor on a holy day, birth of Jesus, birth of Charlemagne as Emperor guy. And he also was a huge fan of Constantine.
Emperor
so
guy.
It all ties together of him thinking, well, I'm going to kind of do what Constantine did, and he helped forge Christianity into what Christianity became. I'm going to do my coronation on Christmas. And then a couple hundred years later, in 1066, William of Normandy gets coronated on Christmas Day in Westminster Abbey and becomes William I of England. So this becomes a very popular date. William had it done, Harold I had it done, Stephen of England, and then Charles II when he became the King of Scotland.
I don't know why Stephen seems like he didn't belong on that list.
He didn't last
Stephen.
long. Stephen. There's only one Stephen in
Is it
English.
King?
He was King Stephen of England, and he was
King Steve.
not well liked. There was a period of lots of chaos in England. Yeah. And there was Stephen, there was Empress Matilda, and then her son became a big deal.
Yeah, we'll talk about King Steve.
We're going to talk about all those guys another time.
King Steve.
King Steve.
Hey.
Hi, that's me. King Steve. My name's Steve. It just makes me think of that dog meme.
Steven.
With the big teeth. Yep.
Steven, I'm a king.
I'm a King Stephen. And as the English king, of course, he's got a bad,
exactly,
bad,
of course.
Bad overbite. Sorry, England.
Sorry, England. Sorry, West Virginia.
West Virginia and England both taking it today. Deal with it. If you don't like it,
Ooh,
make your own videos.
Speaking, I gotta make a dentist appointment later.
That's a good since we're talking about overbites. I do too. I missed a cleaning.
Oh,
Missed a clean VA. Did take care of my
cavity.
teeth. No bueno. So, we've got Hakon now takes Yule and goes, celebration's really popular.
Yeah.
It goes really well.
Yeah.
People seem to enjoy it.
Mm.
I want to tie it to Christianity
Yeah.
because I would like everybody to be Christian.
Boom.
So he links that
Synergy.
together. And it is a beautiful synergy of the concepts of Yule, which is a feast day, mixed with feast day of celebrating Jesus. It's wonderful. People love it. And they respect the king then because he made a fun time, an important time, and made it legal. And encouraged it. And it was like, yeah.
This sounds great for
It was
in the first.
really great. People were big fans of him, and that way he didn't lose any support, as opposed to so many kings who are like, "This is how we're going to do it, smash."
Yeah.
Especially for like a Norse king, because they're very famous for just bloodletting. Like, no, I don't like it. Too bad, stab.
Let that be a lesson to all you tyrannical rulers out there. The people just want to have fun.
They just want to have fun.
They'll do what you want if
They
you let
just-
them have fun.
Just let them have fun. Wine and roses.
That's right.
Come on, bread and games.
There we go.
Just it works.
easy.
It works. If they want to celebrate their pagan holiday, let them celebrate it. Just make them celebrate it at Christmas time.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So, so you start to see this crossover then. Gift giving was more of a thing for Yule time. Was to celebrate, we had a good year, here's some stuff.
There's some things.
Yep, and you'd have an exchange of
Nice.
gifts. So now we've got the celebration of the trees, and we want to know where does that come from,
Yeah.
right? So that comes in the 1500s. So we're
Oh.
going to jump forward. We got to take big jumps with Christmas because it's 2,000 years of history, and
Yeah.
I've got not a ton of time left because
About 10 more
I
minutes.
get sidetracked.
10 more minutes.
So about 500 years later, they would have morality plays. That was a big thing in Renaissance Europe, especially because artists wanted to tell their stories, and the church did not want non-Christian art.
Ah.
But the artists still wanted to act and still wanted to tell stories, so they'd have morality plays.
Uh-huh.
Because then the church couldn't be mad. They're like, we're going out, we're acting, we're doing our thing, we're making money doing this, but we're telling a good story.
You like it?
One of the more common morality plays was to have it about the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, yes.
And they would literally build the stage to look like it was taking place on a tree,
Ah,
like an apple tree.
yeah.
And that was a big part of it.
Or pear tree.
But they did apples.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
We'll talk about that later.
That's fine. There were
Well, the garden, the apple, I believe, was a pear originally.
Yes. Could have been a banana.
Could have been a banana.
Could have been a banana. Pomegranate. That's the secret.
Sure.
That's where the knowledge... How do you open this freaking thing? It tastes like crap. Oh,
I'm
these seeds
sure.
are delicious.
I'm sure it wasn't a banana.
Probably not a banana.
Touch all these trees except the fruit of knowledge. Yeah, this fruit of knowledge. Ooh. Go on.
We're being sassy today.
The kids need to
The
learn.
Christmas one is a sad... earthquake. Wisconsin has earthquakes.
Little ones.
Low ones. That has to do with having too much coffee and then kicking the table. So anyway, so we've got this morality play going
Yeah.
on. And it becomes kind of a big symbol of Christmas time to have morality plays.
Yeah.
And they would originally talk about Adam and Eve, and then they started turning into talking about the birth of Jesus, but they would still use this same setup. So then the tree becomes very popular as an image of Christianity, specifically an apple tree. I don't know why the Western Europeans Western Christianity just decided apple was the fruit.
I swear, I heard
That's
somewhere.
not right, because there aren't a lot of apples in the Middle
Yeah.
East.
For some reason, I heard it was pear. Somewhere in my knowledge, it was pear.
Probably. Don't know.
That would make sense with the
Probably-
partridge in it.
Probably would be a date tree, though, considering the Garden of Eden is thought to be
Big
in the
tree.
Tigris and Euphrates River.
Yeah.
That's the cradle of civilization, is what that's considered. They
look
think maybe that was in there. But they
of
think
knowledge.
that also could have been someplace in Africa. So it's,
Or actually, I mean, if you follow I mean, if it was a tree of knowledge, it was probably not any of the fruits at all. It was a fruit that we shouldn't have had anyway.
yeah. Then they got rid of it.
Yep. Can't have this tree.
No knowledge for you. which is why it's nonsense. Nonsense! Nonsense, I say. Knowledge good.
Knowledge is good.
Really, it just gave him
Tasty.
a bad fashion sense.
Nice.
I'm going to cover myself with leaves. That is poison ivy.
I feel more secure.
I'm covered, but with hives. This is the worst.
So they're doing these festivals.
They have these festivals with
but
these trees.
at some point we start doing it at home.
We start having these festivals kind of at home, yeah. The first recorded, tying it to Christmas was in, 1547. There's a drawing of it in France of this tree being used as a Christmas celebration. Now, it wasn't internally, but the first time, in a house,
Right.
the first time that it's supposedly, the first Christmas tree ever is supposedly attributed to Martin Luther, founder of Protestantism, Lutheranism. And he is thought to be the first person to take this tree and add candles to it.
Bad idea.
Terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. But until electricity, that was what they used.
Okay.
Were candles.
Yeah, okay.
Which pine plus candle.
Yeah.
And the idea of the tree is a very Germanic thing. Was having they celebrated that during Yule. Was having the Yule log.
Oh, okay.
Right? They'd have the Yule logs. They'd have the Yule tree. So they just
now, was
started
a
doing-
Yule log just like a big log that they would use in? So we're gonna burn this.
Yep.
All right.
It would last forever and burn all night.
Yeah,
But
okay.
they had also started celebrating with trees, and decorating trees was a big deal.
And what are trees but stacked logs?
Truth. Logs that haven't tipped over.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, we'll talk about Martin Luther some other time. But if it was his idea to put candles on trees,
We should yell at him. Maybe
I
we
mean-
shouldn't have followed him. Maybe people shouldn't have listened to that guy.
well, we got to light up the tree somehow.
Yeah.
I want to see the tree in the dark. Well, okay, I guess maybe not hang the candles on the tree.
Nope. Gotta put them on the tree.
Okay,
Make sure you water the tree.
even then, it just seems like
Doesn't
a bad
matter.
idea.
It's fire plus
What's
wood.
the one thing?
Fire plus wood.
What's the one thing that trees don't like?
Fire.
Fire.
Fire and axes.
And axes, right?
In that order.
If you were to decorate,
Fire, axe.
But even if you were to decorate it in axes, that would be safer.
That's safer because you don't have somebody just swinging it. Axes don't kill trees. People with axes
That's right.
kill trees. Fire, however, kills everything indiscriminately.
That's right.
And if you're hanging it on there, you're asking for trouble.
And your tree in your house, that's probably also made of wood.
Wood. Because you're peasants.
Like nice. This is a great
This is a
plan.
terrible. I'm surprised Germany didn't burn down before it could do anything. They just, we're going to take this pine tree, and I don't know why we're Southerners, and we're going to put the pine tree in our house, and what do you think, Hans? I think that's a good idea, Dieter.
Light it up a bit.
Set it on fire. No, not on fire, and put wax on it first.
Wait till we're drinking.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're also sloshed
Yeah.
and been partying all night, and then you're going to light the tree on fire.
Merry Christmas.
That's a Christmas miracle.
It is.
That Christmas lasted through this nonsense. Because they were setting it all on fire. Now, Christmas is very popular in the majority of Europe. However, it is super unpopular in England.
Oh.
The Puritans thought it was a dirty holiday. They thought it was gross,
To be
and they
fair-
outlawed it in places.
To be clear, the Puritans thought everything was dirty.
They thought everything was gross and dirty. Now, that was because, at this time, because of all the other celebrations it's linked to, it was a time of just drunken and disorderly conduct
Sure.
throughout all of Europe,
It's
basically.
a celebration.
People were just drunk
Yeah.
for like a week,
Yeah.
basically. And this was not liked in Puritan society. They were teetotalers, and they liked controlling everything. So it was very, very, very unpopular, and it was considered like a really bad thing to celebrate this. So they did not celebrate Christmas. That was like a huge no Christmas. They were the original like bah humbug.
Oh.
Which brings us to the revision of Christmas. So Christmas kind of, again, gets put into the back burner.
You got about 2 minutes to wrap this up.
Puts it in a little back burner until a little guy comes along named Charles Dickens.
Hey, what?
And he says, okay, so it's cold and we're all poor and this sucks. We're going to make Christmas more about giving gifts and goodwill towards men. And he's not the only one. There are a lot of authors around this time that there's the push of humanism.
Just so you're not looking at everything going, this all sucks.
This all sucks.
Let's make it
Not
better.
only that, but there's huge wealth disparity throughout Europe at this time. I mean, there still is, but at this time especially, it's huge wealth disparity without comfort. So nowadays we have massive wealth disparity, but it's like we can go get a latte, and that can make life a little better.
Yeah.
Back then it was you can go and have some gruel, maybe if you can find it, and life's not going to get better, and life sucks.
Yeah.
Dickensian England, like those portrayals of Europe are pretty accurate. It's pretty hellish for a lot of people.
So when is this then?
So this is in the 1800s, and Christmas gets a big revision.
Yeah.
Where it's less about the partying and the pagan holidays, because the only people who are using Christmas trees are the rich people.
Well, yeah.
They take this as this is a good idea. They like this idea of this tree, and we're going to decorate it, and we're going to have it be fancy. We're doing that. So that was like only rich people did that for a long time. But poor people took it as a chance to go, well, we're going to share what we have. We're going to give gifts to each other. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but largely it's going to be this concept of being kind to each other during this time of year, because that was Jesus's biggest thing, was being nice to each other. So you have years and years of like decadent partying and all these big feasting and celebrations linking all these pagan ideas together, but not once are the people talking about the meaning of Christmas is being kind to
Amazing
each other.
it took almost 2,000 years for
Almost
him to go,
2,000 years.
oh, he meant be nice to each other. That's what he
was about. So that was the time of year. And it took a borderline atheist like Dickens to go, maybe just be nice. Okay. And that was the big humanist revival of the 1800s, was being kind towards one another, because you know, life has all this suffering in it. You can be light and kind and helpful to each other, and let's use this as an opportunity to do it. And then, fast forward beyond that, and in America, and this is also when Santa Claus is developed.
Yes.
Father Christmas had been around for a long time, but Father Christmas was originally Odin. Big bearded guy wandering around telling stories, doing stuff, sharing gifts.
Oh, if he had one eye, that'd be much cooler.
Father Christmas was much more terrifying back in the day, because he was a warrior and he brought knowledge and gifts, but he was a warrior. Yes. So it's like if you messed with Father Christmas, you got the spear.
All right. Yeah. Well, so, now, do you have a lot more to talk about? Because we are out of time.
No, just a little bit more. But then what happens nowadays, in this past century especially, was Christmas became all about the gifts.
Yeah.
It's all about the gifts now.
Yeah.
So this concept of Christmas time and keeping Christmas and all this war on Christmas stuff. Christmas was a very private thing, and it was a very it was more about going out and being kind and giving and sharing. It wasn't about Santa Claus and trees and showing big, like you'd have your nativity scene maybe at home.
Yeah.
That was a very popular thing to celebrate Jesus's travel and his mother's travel, and then him being born. That the nativity was always a big thing, but that was linked to other pagan rituals of you have your little statuary representing all these things. And now it's become much more about money and capitalism, because America largely is pushing that concept. So we've developed from pagan holiday of getting drunk basically to celebrate the changing of the seasons and the cycle of death and then rebirth, to presents.
Yes.
And it's there's this huge span of history where you see it evolve and change and shift, and it's this cross-pollination of ideas. But it wasn't that the original Christmas in Rome was, let's cut down this pine tree and celebrate the birth of this guy. That was not how it went down. It took, like you said, like 2,000 years to get to where it is today.
Interesting.
So
we could talk forever about all the traditions of Christmas. I know a few myself, but we not in this time. We're just talking about the first Christmas.
The first Christmas which we've done.
So thanks.
And we talked about why we had the first Christmas.
So many things.
All the stuff that happened with the first Christmas.
So many things.
We talked about Mike needing to go to the dentist.
You can watch the video again.
Yeah.
All right. So that's this week in history. The first Christmas.
First Christmas.
Maybe next year we'll talk about Christmas again. Who knows?
Yeah. The first documented Christmas, we should say, because the first Christmas, I would think,
was before that.
Was when he was born.
Oh, sure.
Technically. So the year 1.
Yeah. But
good job, Christians.
Well
like all of time is based on your special day, so that's pretty cool.
Good job, Will.
I did it.
About an hour.
About an hour.
Now, we're going to have another show next week.
We are.
And it'll be we're talking about December 29th.
December 29th.
1170.
1170.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the assassination of Thomas Becket. Who is he? Why does it matter?
Just when you thought we were done talking about people
about
dying.
War and death. We're like Christmas. And nope, we did our nice thing.
Right back to the war and
I
death.
didn't even talk about any horrible stuff. Well, we did mention human sacrifice. But
If
then
you're-
it went away.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We need more subscribers.
We need 'em.
And share this video around to others. We hope you enjoyed and learned
Put
a
it
little
on
bit
the
of something.
Facebook.
If you're celebrating Christmas, try doing the nice thing this year. Just be nice to each
Be
other.
nice to people.
How about
If you
that?
don't celebrate Christmas, just be nice to each other. Anyway, that's cool.
There's no season for being
You
nice.
don't have to be nice just for a season. Do it all year. It's pretty awesome.
All right, Will.
Mike,
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. See you later.